Stay away from him. The command cut through the dim hallway like a gunshot, sharp and final, but Jimin didn't move. Not when Suga stood in front of him, eyes cold and unyielding. Not when the tension between them felt like it could tear the air apart. And definitely not when Jungkook was standing just behind him, silent, shaking, caught between two worlds that refused to coexist. Jimin said softly. It wasn't loud, it wasn't aggressive, but it carried something heavier than anger, certainty. Suga's gaze darkened. You don't understand what you're getting into. Let out a slow breath, steadying himself, even though his heart was racing. Then explain it to me, he replied. Because from where I'm standing, all I see is you trying to push him away again. Jungkook flinched at that word again. The hallway felt smaller after that, like the walls had leaned in to listen and decided not to let them leave with anything less than the truth. For a second, none of them moved. Then Suga turned sharply, his voice low but urgent. We can't stay here. Didn't argue this time. He tightened his grip around Jungkook's wrist just enough to anchor him, then nodded once, glanced toward the stairwell, then back at them. Somewhere they don't expect. Doesn't sound very reassuring, Jimin muttered, but he followed. Jungkook let himself be pulled along, his mind still catching up with everything that had just been said. The words echoed in him. They know he matters to me, over and over, louder than his own heartbeat. Outside, the night air was colder than before. The rain had stopped, but the pavement still shimmered under the streetlights, reflecting broken pieces of the city in wavering gold. Suga didn't slow down. He moved with purpose, shoulders tense, eyes scanning every shadow like he expected something, or someone, to step out at any moment. Jimin noticed. You've done this before, he said quietly, keeping his voice low as they walked. Suga didn't look at him. Enough to know what not to do. What exactly is that, standing still? Jungkook glanced at him, something uneasy settling in his chest. Are we being followed? Suga didn't answer right away. That was answer enough. Jimin's grip tightened slightly. Great, he muttered under his breath. They turned down a narrow street, darker, quieter. The sounds of traffic faded behind them, replaced by the distant hum of the city and the soft echo of their footsteps. Suga finally stopped in front of an old building. Nothing remarkable, just another forgotten corner of the city. You've been here before, Jungkook said, more statement than question. Suga nodded once and pushed the door open. The inside smelled faintly of dust and old wood. The lights flickered when Suga flipped the switch, revealing a small, cluttered space, half storage, half living area. A couch pushed against the wall, a table scattered with old papers, a window covered by heavy curtains. Jimin stepped in last, closing the door carefully behind them. Safe, he asked, for now, comforting but honest. Jungkook moved slowly into the room, his eyes taking everything in. It felt like a place Suga had used before when things got complicated, when he needed somewhere to disappear. Long? Jungkook asked quietly. Suga leaned against the table, exhaling slowly. Since before you. The words landed heavier than intended. Jungkook didn't respond, but Jimin noticed the shift in his expression, the brief flicker of something fragile. Focus, Jimin said gently, redirecting. What's the plan? Suga ran a hand through his hair. Packing now. We don't have many options, he admitted. They're watching, waiting. They'll expect me to either run or hand over what I took. You're not doing either, Jimin said. No, Jungkook stepped closer. Then what? Suga stopped packing. For a moment he just stood there thinking, the weight of every decision pressing into the lines of his face. Then he looked at Jungkook. Expose them. Silence. Jimin blinked. That's your plan. It's the only one that ends this, or gets us killed faster, Jimin replied bluntly. Suga didn't argue. That's the risk. Jungkook felt his pulse spike. How? Suga reached into his jacket and pulled out the small black drive. The data, he said. It's enough. Names, transactions, connections. If it goes public, they lose control. Jimin crossed his arms. And before it goes public, they'll try to stop it. Exactly. Silence, heavy, dangerous. Jungkook stepped forward again, closer this time, his voice softer. You were going to do this alone. Suga didn't deny it. Jimin let out a quiet breath, shaking his head. You really have a problem with that, don't you? It's not a problem, Suga said. It's logic. No, Jimin replied, his gaze steady. It's fear, that hit. Suga's expression tightened slightly. Jungkook watched both of them, the tension threading through the space like something alive. You're afraid we'll get hurt, Jungkook said. Suga looked at him. Yes. Honesty in that single word made Jungkook's chest ache. But pushing us away doesn't fix that, Jungkook continued. It just means you're the only one taking the hit. Suga didn't respond. Jimin stepped closer now too, standing just beside Jungkook, not pulling him away, not claiming him, just there. We're already involved, Jimin said quietly. Whether you like it or not, Suga exhaled slowly. I know. The room fell into a quieter kind of silence, less sharp, more grounded. For the first time they weren't arguing, they were standing on the same side of something. Suga looked between them, then nodded once. All right, he said. Then we do this together. Felt something steady in his chest at those words, not relief, not exactly, but something close. What do we need? Jimin asked. Suga turned back to the table, pushing aside old papers, searching through something unseen. He said, a secure line, somewhere we can upload everything without it being intercepted. Jimin frowned slightly. That sounds complicated. It is, leaned against the edge of the table. You know how to do it though. Suga paused, then nodded. Yes. Then we trust that. Quiet moment passed, then a sound faint. Outside, all three of them froze instantly. Jimin's hand tightened slightly around Jungkook's sleeve. Suga's head tilted, listening. Footsteps, slow, deliberate. Jungkook's breath slowed. They found us, Jimin whispered. Suga's eyes sharpened. Too fast. The footsteps stopped right outside the door, silence thick, waiting. Suga moved first, stepping in front of them, his posture shifting completely. No hesitation, no doubt. Stay behind me, he said quietly. Jimin didn't argue, Jungkook didn't either. The doorknob moved, just slightly. A soft click echoed through the room. Jungkook's heart slammed against his ribs. Suga's hand tightened around the small drive. Another click. The door creaked open and a shadow slipped inside, not rushed, not loud, controlled. The figure stepped into the dim light. And for a split second, no one spoke. Then Jungkook's eyes widened. You. The name caught in his throat because this wasn't someone he expected, and somehow that made it worse. Suga noticed. His jaw tightened, but he didn't look at Jungkook, not directly. That's not your concern. It became my concern the moment he started breaking down in front of me. Jimin shot back, his voice rising slightly now. Do you know what he looks like when he tries to pretend he's okay? Because I do. The hallway lights flickered faintly, casting shadows across their faces. Jungkook's breath felt uneven, like the past was clawing its way back into his chest, piece by piece. Jimin, stop, he murmured, but Jimin shook his head, stepping forward instead of back. He said again, this time firmer. Not this time. Suga's eyes finally snapped to Jungkook. This what you want? He asked, his voice quieter now but sharper. To drag him into something he doesn't understand. Jungkook froze. Because the truth was, he didn't fully understand it, not everything. Not the late nights Suga disappeared without explanation. Not the way his voice changed whenever certain topics came up. Not the quiet fear hidden behind his calm exterior. But he understood enough. Enough to know that what he had with Suga hadn't been simple. And whatever had broken between them hadn't really ended. I'm not being dragged, Jungkook said, his voice barely above a whisper. Both of them looked at him. I chose to stay, he added. Jimin's chest tightened slightly at those words. But he didn't step away. Suga's expression flickered. That's exactly the problem, he said. Silence fell heavy, complicated, the kind that carried years of unspoken words. Jimin glanced at Jungkook, noticing the way his hands trembled slightly, the way his gaze kept shifting between them like he was searching for something he couldn't name. Tell him, Jimin said quietly. Suga didn't respond. Tell him why you left, Jimin continued, his voice softer now but no less firm. Tell him why you suddenly decided he didn't matter. That's not what happened, Suga snapped. Then what did happen? The question hung in the air, unavoidable. Suga looked at Jungkook again. This time there was no distance in his eyes, no coldness, only something raw, something unfinished. I left, Suga said slowly, because staying would have destroyed him. Jimin frowned. That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't have to make sense to you. It does if you're asking him to stay away from me, Jimin shot back. You don't get to disappear, break him, and then come back telling me what I can or can't do. Jungkook closed his eyes briefly. The words hit too close, because Jimin wasn't wrong, but Suga wasn't wrong either, and that was the problem. I didn't come back to control anything, Suga said, his voice lower now, almost tired. I came back to fix something I should have never let happen. Jungkook's eyes opened again. What does that mean? He asked. Suga hesitated. Jimin watched him carefully. You're still hiding something, Jimin said. Suga didn't deny it. That's because some things don't just affect me, he replied. Jimin's expression hardened. Then maybe it's time you stop deciding what's best for everyone else. A beat of silence, then Jungkook stepped forward. Both of them turned to him instantly. "I'm tired," Jungkook said, his voice trembling but steady. "I'm tired of feeling like I'm standing in the middle of something I don't understand." His hands clenched at his sides. "I remember enough," he continued slowly. "Not everything, but enough to know that what we had," he looked at Suga, "was real." Suga's breath caught slightly. "And what I have now," Jungkook turned to Jimin, "that's real too." Jimin's chest tightened. The truth hung between them, fragile and dangerous. Jungkook exhaled shakily. "I don't want to choose based on secrets," he said. "I don't want to be pushed away because someone thinks it's safer." His gaze returned to Suga. "If you want me to stay away," he said softly, "then give me a real reason." Suga's silence stretched too long, Jimin noticed, and something inside him shifted. "See," Jimin murmured, "you can't even say it." Suga's eyes flickered, frustration rising. "You think this is easy?" "No," Jimin said, "but I think you're making it harder than it needs to be." Suga let out a sharp breath, running a hand through his damp hair. "You don't know what's at stake." "Then tell me," Jimin insisted. Another silence, then Suga laughed quietly, but there was no humor in it. "If I tell you," he said, "you don't get to walk away." Didn't hesitate. "I wasn't planning to." Jungkook's heart pounded, the air felt tighter, heavier. Suga looked at both of them, really looked. At Jimin's unwavering stance, at Jungkook's quiet, desperate hope. And something inside him finally gave in. "There are people," Suga began, his voice low, controlled, "who don't like loose ends." Jimin frowned slightly. "And I became one," Suga continued. "Because of something I found, something I wasn't supposed to see." Jungkook's breath slowed. "Information," he guessed. Suga nodded faintly. "And they think Jungkook is connected to you," Jimin said, putting the pieces together. "They don't think," Suga replied. "They assume." Silence. Jimin felt a chill run through him, pushing him away. He said slowly, "Was your way of protecting him?" "Yes." Jungkook swallowed hard. "Then why come back?" he asked. Suga looked at him. "Because I couldn't stay away," he almost said, but instead, because things changed. Jimin's eyes narrowed slightly. "How?" Suga didn't answer immediately. Instead, he stepped closer, close enough that the distance between all three of them felt impossibly small. "Because now," he said quietly, "they know he matters to me." The words hit harder than anything else. Jungkook felt it first, sharp and overwhelming. Jimin felt it next, heavy and complicated. And Suga just stood there, the truth finally out, with no way to take it back. "I told you to stay away," Suga said, his voice softer now, almost pleading beneath the surface. "Not because I wanted to control anything, but because I don't know how to protect both of you." Jimin's expression shifted. For the first time, the anger faded slightly, not gone, but replaced by something else, understanding. "You don't have to do it alone," Jimin said quietly. Suga shook his head. "You don't get it." "I do," Jimin interrupted. "More than you think." Looked between them, his chest tightening again, but not with confusion this time, with something deeper, something more dangerous. Because this wasn't just about the past anymore. It wasn't just about who loved who first. It was about who would stay, and who would fight. Jimin reached out, his hand finding Jungkook's wrist, grounding him. "I'm not letting him go," Jimin said, his voice calm but firm. Suga closed his eyes briefly. "I know," he admitted. And when he opened them again, something had changed. The resistance was still there, the fear. The weight of everything he was carrying. But beneath it, there was something else, acceptance. Then Suga stepped closer, not away this time. "If you're staying," he said quietly, looking at both of them, "then you follow my lead." Raised an eyebrow slightly. "That sounds like control again." "It's survival," Suga replied. Jungkook let out a slow breath. For the first time, the distance between them didn't feel like a wall. It felt like a fragile bridge, unsteady, risky, but real. And as the silence settled around them once more, none of them moved away. Because leaving was no longer an option.
The door closed with a soft click behind the figure, and for a moment the room felt like it had stopped breathing. "Taehyung," Jungkook's voice came out barely above a whisper. The man stepped fully into the light, rainwater still clinging to the edges of his coat. V looked exactly the same and completely different. His expression was calm, almost unreadable, but there was something colder behind his eyes now, something that didn't belong to the version of him Jungkook remembered. "Well," Taehyung said quietly, glancing around the room, his gaze briefly pausing on Suga and then on Jimin. "This is inconvenient." Jimin's stance shifted instantly, protective without thinking, his body angling slightly in front of Jungkook. "You don't get to just walk in like this." Taehyung's lips curved faintly, not quite a smile. I didn't break in. You followed us, Jimin shot back. I prefer the word tracked. Suga didn't move, but something in his posture sharpened. You shouldn't be here. I could say the same to you, Taehyung replied, his tone still calm, but the air between them tightened instantly. Jungkook's chest felt tight, confusion rising fast. Wait, what's going on? Why are you, Jungkook? Suga's voice cut in, low and warning. Too late. Taehyung's gaze softened slightly when it landed on Jungkook, but it didn't lose that edge. You always ask questions at the wrong time. That's because no one answers them, Jungkook snapped back, frustration finally breaking through. Why are you here? A brief silence followed, then Taehyung exhaled slowly like he had expected this. I'm here, he said, because you're running out of time. Suga's eyes narrowed. You're part of this now. Taehyung tilted his head. I was always part of this. The words hit harder than they should have. Jimin frowned. What does that mean? It means, Taehyung said, stepping a little closer into the room, that the people you're trying to expose don't send the same person twice. Suga's grip on the small drive tightened. You replaced him, Suga said. Taehyung replied. I was sent because things got complicated. His gaze flicked toward Jungkook again. Emotional, the room fell silent. Jungkook felt it, the shift, the realization settling in like something heavy and unavoidable. You're working with them. He asked, his voice quieter now, almost disbelieving. Taehyung didn't answer immediately, then, yes. The word landed clean. Jimin's expression hardened instantly. Then you're not here to help. Looked at him unimpressed. I didn't say that either. Suga finally stepped forward, placing himself fully between Taehyung and the others. State your purpose, he said coldly. Taehyung studied him for a moment, then he reached into his coat. Jimin tensed, Jungkook's breath caught. But instead of a weapon, Taehyung pulled out a small envelope. Thin, sealed, unmarked, he held it up. You have less time than you think, he said. Suga didn't take it. What is it? Proof, Taehyung replied, that they're done negotiating. Jimin glanced at Suga. Don't. Suga ignored him, stepping forward just enough to take the envelope. The moment their fingers brushed, something unspoken passed between them, recognition, tension, history. Then Suga pulled back and opened it. Inside was a photograph. The color drained from his face instantly. Jungkook noticed. What is it? He asked, stepping closer. Suga didn't respond. Jimin moved beside him, looking over his shoulder, and his expression darkened too. Jungkook's heart started pounding. Taehyung, slowly, Suga turned the photo toward him. Jungkook's breath stopped. It was him, taken earlier outside, walking with Jimin. A red mark circled his face, and beneath it, a time, a location, and a single line next. The room felt like it collapsed inward. They're not waiting anymore, Taehyung said quietly. Jungkook's hands trembled slightly as he stared at the photo. They're going to, yes. Suga folded the photo tightly, his jaw clenched so hard it hurt to look at. Jimin's voice dropped, sharp and controlled. Then we move now. Suga nodded once, but Taehyung didn't step aside. You're not going anywhere yet. All three of them looked at him. Jungkook's chest tightened. What? Taehyung's gaze didn't waver. You don't understand the situation, he said. Running won't fix it. Standing here won't either, Jimin snapped. Taehyung ignored him, focusing on Suga. They want the data, he said, and they want control. Suga's expression didn't change. I know. No, Taehyung said softly. You don't. A beat of silence then. They don't just want you to hand it over, Taehyung continued. They want to make sure you can't use it. Swallowed hard. What does that mean? Taehyung looked at him. It means you're not just leverage, he said. You're a message. The words landed like ice. Jimin's hand tightened into a fist. Suga stepped forward again, his voice low, dangerous. Say what you came to say. Didn't hesitate this time. There's a way out, he said. Silence. Jimin let out a bitter breath. Of course there is. Suga's eyes narrowed. What's the catch? Taehyung's gaze flicked briefly to Jungkook, then back to Suga. You come with me, he said. Alone. Jungkook's heart dropped instantly. He said, stepping forward without thinking. Suga didn't respond. Absolutely not, Jimin added, his voice sharp. Taehyung didn't react. They get what they want, he continued calmly. The data, your cooperation, everything. In return, Suga asked. Taehyung's voice softened just slightly. They leave them out of it. Silence fell like a weight. Jungkook shook his head immediately. No, that's not happening. Suga still didn't answer. Jimin turned to him. You're not even considering this. Suga's gaze remained fixed on Taehyung. You guarantee their safety? He asked. Taehyung met his eyes. As much as anyone in my position can. That's not good enough, Jimin snapped. It's the only option you have, Taehyung replied. Jungkook stepped in front of Suga now, blocking his view. You don't get to make that choice alone, he said, his voice shaking but firm. Suga finally looked at him, and something in his expression broke again, quiet, restrained, but unmistakable. Don't have a choice, he said. You do, Jungkook insisted. We figure something else out together. Suga's hand lifted slightly, hovering like he wanted to reach out but couldn't. They already chose you, he said softly. I'm just trying to change the ending. Jungkook's chest tightened painfully. This isn't protecting me, he whispered. This is losing me. Suga didn't respond because he knew. Jimin stepped closer, his voice lower now, steadier. If you go with him, you don't come back the same. Taehyung didn't deny it. Suga closed his eyes briefly. The room felt unbearably still. Then he opened them again, and the decision was already there. I'll go. No. Jungkook's voice broke. Jimin grabbed his arm, holding him back as he tried to step forward. You said we'd do this together, Jungkook said. His words uneven, desperate. You said that. Suga looked at him, really looked this time like he was memorizing every detail. I lied, he said quietly, but his eyes said something else entirely, something that made Jungkook's chest ache even more. Taehyung stepped back toward the door. We don't have much time. Suga moved. Jungkook struggled against Jimin's grip. Let go, no, Jimin said, his voice tight. Not like this. Suga stopped just long enough to glance back, just once. I'm sorry, he said, then he walked toward the door. Taehyung opened it. Cold air rushed in, and just like that, Suga stepped out into the night, leaving everything behind. The door didn't slam, it closed quietly, almost gently, like what had just happened wasn't violent at all, like Suga hadn't just walked out of their lives without knowing if he'd ever come back. For a second, no one moved, then Jungkook tore himself free. Taehyung, his voice cracked as he lunged for the door, fingers barely catching the handle before Jimin grabbed him again, this time harder. Jungkook, stop. Let go. Jungkook struggled, panic flooding his chest. I can still. No, you can't. Firmness in Jimin's voice cut through him more than the grip on his arm. Jungkook froze. For a moment, all he could hear was his own breathing, sharp, uneven, breaking apart in his throat. He not leaving you, Jimin said more quietly now. He's trying to protect you. That's not protecting me. Jungkook snapped, turning toward him, eyes burning. That's him deciding I'm better off without him. Jimin didn't flinch because he understood that pain better than anyone. I know, he said softly, that made it worse. Jungkook's shoulders shook as he pulled away, this time not to run, but because he couldn't stand still. The room suddenly felt too small, too suffocating. He promised. Jungkook whispered, running a hand through his hair, his thoughts spiraling. He said we'd do this together. He said. He also said he loved you. Jimin interrupted gently. Silence. Jungkook's breath hitched. And that's exactly why he left, Jimin added. The words settled deep, painfully. Jungkook turned away, staring at the closed door like he could still see through it. Like if he looked hard enough, he might catch a glimpse of Suga walking away and somehow stop it from happening. But the hallway beyond was empty, gone. Everything felt too quiet, too final. We can't just let him go, Jungkook said after a long moment, his voice steadier now, but colder. Jimin watched him carefully. What are you thinking? Jungkook turned back, something sharper in his eyes now. We find him. Didn't answer immediately. Instead, he studied Jungkook, the tension in his jaw, the way his hands were no longer trembling, the shift from panic to something more dangerous, determination. You think they'll just let you walk in and take him back? Jimin asked. Jungkook replied, then what's the plan? Jungkook hesitated, because the truth was he didn't have one, not yet, but that didn't matter. I'll make one, he said. Jimin exhaled slowly, almost like he expected that answer. Of course you will. Jungkook stepped closer, urgency returning. You're coming with me. Wasn't a question. Jimin's lips curved faintly, not in amusement, but in something softer. You really think I'd let you do this alone? Jungkook didn't respond. He didn't need to. Jimin glanced toward the table where the scattered papers still lay untouched, then back at Jungkook. Then we need to move fast, he said. Because if Taehyung took him, he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. Jungkook nodded once, then his gaze shifted, something catching his attention. The envelope still on the table, forgotten in the chaos. He walked toward it slowly, his steps quieter now, more controlled. Jimin followed, watching as Jungkook picked it up again, unfolding the photo inside. The image hadn't changed, but the meaning had. They were watching us, Jungkook murmured. Jimin leaned closer. Yeah, Jungkook's eyes narrowed slightly. Not just watching, he added. Tracking, Jimin frowned. Same thing. No. Jungkook shook his head, his gaze scanning the photo more carefully this time, the angle, the distance, the timing. This wasn't random, he said. Jimin crossed his arms, thinking, you're saying they planned this? Saying they wanted us to see it? Silence, Jimin's expression shifted. Why? Jungkook looked up. Pressure him, he said, to make him choose faster. Jimin exhaled quietly. And he did. Yeah. Folded the photo again, slower this time, more deliberate. But that means something else too. Jimin raised an eyebrow. What? Jungkook's voice dropped slightly. They're confident. The word hung in the air, dangerous. Jimin's jaw tightened. Which means they think they've already won. Jungkook nodded faintly. Then let's prove them wrong, Jimin said. Jungkook looked at him, really looked, and for a second the weight of everything between them surfaced again. The past, the present, the feelings that didn't fit neatly into anything. But there was no time to sort through it, not now. Jungkook slipped the photo into his pocket. We need information, he said. Anything about them, about where they'd take him. Thought for a moment, then nodded. I might know someone. Jungkook blinked. You do, Jimin hesitated. Not someone I like, he admitted, but someone who knows things. Jungkook didn't question it. Then we go. Grabbed his jacket, already moving. But before they reached the door, Jungkook stopped. Jimin turned back. What? Jungkook's gaze drifted across the room one last time, at the place Suga had been standing, at the space he had left behind. Something tightened in his chest, but it didn't break him this time. It steadied him. I'm bringing him back, Jungkook said quietly, not as a hope, not as a question, as a promise. Jimin watched him for a second, then gave a small nod. Then let's go get him. Opened the door, the night air hit them again, colder now, sharper, but this time they stepped into it together, not to run, but to chase something that refused to be lost.
The city felt different once they stepped outside, quieter, sharper, like every shadow had meaning now. Jungkook didn't slow down. His steps were faster than before, more focused, like the hesitation that used to hold him back had finally burned away. Beside him, Jimin kept pace easily, his expression unreadable but his eyes constantly scanning their surroundings. "You trust me?" Jimin asked suddenly. Jungkook didn't hesitate. "Yeah." Jimin nodded once, as if confirming something to himself. "Then don't ask too many questions when we get there." That should have been a warning. Instead, Jungkook just said, "Fine." They turned off the main road into a narrow alley, then another and another, until the bright lights of the city were nothing more than a distant glow behind them. The air grew heavier, damp, carrying the faint scent of rust and rain-soaked concrete. Jungkook frowned slightly. "You've been here before." "Often," Jimin replied. "And not by choice." That didn't help. They stopped in front of a metal door, worn and scratched like it had seen too much. Jimin knocked twice, paused, then once more silence. Jungkook shifted slightly, tension building in his chest, then a click. The door opened just enough to reveal a sliver of darkness inside. A voice came from within, low and cautious. "You're late." Didn't respond to the tone. "We need information." Door opened wider. "Then come in." The room inside was dimly lit, cluttered with monitors, wires, and stacks of documents scattered across every surface. Screens flickered with lines of code, surveillance feeds, things Jungkook didn't fully understand, but immediately didn't trust. And at the center of it all, a man leaned back in a chair, watching them with quiet interest. "Didn't expect to see you again," he said, his gaze lingering on Jimin. Jimin's posture stiffened slightly. "Save it." Man's eyes shifted to Jungkook. "And you brought company." Jungkook met his gaze without backing down. "We don't have time," Jungkook said. "We're looking for someone." Man smirked faintly. "Aren't we all?" Jimin stepped forward, cutting the distance. "Stop playing games, you've heard what's happening." Man's expression changed just slightly. "I hear a lot of things," he said. "Then hear this one," Jimin replied, his voice colder now. "They took him." The hum of the monitors seemed louder now. The man leaned forward slowly, resting his elbows on his knees. "Who?" Jungkook stepped in before Jimin could answer. "Suga." The name settled heavily in the room. The man's eyes narrowed slightly. "That complicates things." Jimin crossed his arms. "It already is." Jungkook took a step closer. "You know where they'd take him?" Man didn't answer immediately. Instead, he studied Jungkook carefully, like he was trying to figure out something deeper than just the question. "Why do you care?" he asked. Jungkook didn't blink. "Because I'm not leaving him there." The certainty in his voice made the man pause, then slowly he leaned back again. "You're serious." Beat of silence. Then the man let out a quiet breath, like he was making a decision he wasn't entirely comfortable with. "They don't use just one place," he said. "They rotate, keeps things unpredictable." Jimin's patience thinned. "Then give us the most likely one." Man's gaze flicked to him. "You don't get to demand anything here." Didn't flinch. "I just did." The tension between them sharpened instantly. Jungkook stepped in again, his voice lower, controlled. "Please." That one word shifted something. The man sighed. "There's a facility," he said finally. "Old off-grid. They use it when things get sensitive." Jungkook's heart sped up. "Where?" The man stood, walking over to one of the monitors. He tapped a few keys, pulling up a map, dark, detailed, marked with subtle indicators Jungkook didn't recognize. Then he pointed. "Here." Leaned closer. Jimin's eyes narrowed. "That's outside the city." "Exactly," the man said. "No witnesses, no interruptions." Jungkook swallowed hard. "That's where they'd take him," he said. The man nodded faintly. "If they consider him a priority," glanced at Jungkook. "He is." Jungkook didn't say anything. He didn't need to. The man studied them both again. "You're not thinking of going there," he said. Jungkook met his gaze. "Yes." A short, disbelieving laugh escaped the man. "That's not a rescue mission. That's suicide." "Then we'll make it work," Jungkook replied. Jimin added quietly, "We don't have another option." Man shook his head. "You don't understand what you're walking into." Jungkook's voice dropped. "Then help us understand." Longer this time. Then the man looked at Jimin. "You owe me," he said. Jimin's expression darkened. "Don't." "You said it yourself," the man continued. "We don't have time." Clenched his jaw. Jungkook glanced between them. "What is he talking about?" Jimin didn't answer. The man smiled faintly. "Ask him later." "Now," Jungkook insisted. Jimin exhaled slowly, like the weight of something old had just landed back on his shoulders. "He helped me once," Jimin said. "A long time ago. And now it's your turn," the man added. Jimin looked at him sharply. "You're asking too much." "Asking for balance." Jungkook's chest tightened. "What does he want?" The man's gaze returned to Jungkook. You, he said simply. Silence. Jungkook frowned. What? Not like that, the man clarified, almost amused. I need someone who can get inside without being noticed. Jimin's voice turned cold. No, Jungkook's heart pounded. Inside where? The man tapped the screen again. The facility. Everything stopped. You want me to go in alone? Jungkook said. Yes, no, Jimin repeated, sharper now. That's not happening. Man shrugged slightly. Then neither is your rescue. Jungkook looked at the map again, at the place where Suga was, at the distance between them, at the time they didn't have. I'll do it. Turn to him instantly. Absolutely not. Jungkook met his eyes. We don't have a choice. There's always a choice, Jimin snapped. Not if it costs him his life. Jungkook shot back. Silence hit hard. Jimin's grip tightened at his sides, conflict flashing across his face. You don't know what they'll do to you, he said, quieter now. Jungkook nodded faintly. I know. No, you don't. Maybe not, Jungkook admitted. But I know what happens if I don't go. Didn't respond, because he knew too. The man watched them, silent now, waiting. Jungkook turned back to him. What do I need to do? Jimin closed his eyes briefly, frustration and fear colliding inside him. Then he looked at Jungkook again, and this time he didn't try to stop him. If you go, Jimin said slowly, you don't do anything reckless. Gave a small, almost bitter smile. I think we're past that. Stepped closer anyway, his voice dropping. You come back, he said, not a request, a demand. Jungkook nodded. I will. Jimin held his gaze for a second longer, then stepped back. The man turned toward the screen again, already pulling up more details. Then listen carefully, he said. And as the plan began to take shape, the distance between Jungkook and Suga no longer felt impossible, just dangerous.